The following selected verses are from a Buddhist scripture called the Diamond Sutra, or the longer, more proper version is the diamond that cuts through illusion. This is a conversation between a student of the Buddha and the Buddha himself. The student asks, "World-honored one, if we want to give rise to the highest, most fulfilled, awakened mind, what should we rely on and what should we do to master our thinking?" The Buddha replied that he was very pleased by this question and said that he always supports and shows special confidence in bodhisattvas. The Buddha said, "This is how the bodhisattvas master their thinking. However many species of living beings there are, we must lead all these beings to ultimate nirvana or heaven so that they can be liberated. When this innumerable, immeasurable, infinite number of beings has become liberated, we don't actually in truth think, though, that we have saved or liberated all of those different beings. Because if a bodhisattva holds on to the idea that a self or a person or the concept of a living being or even a lifespan, if one holds on to any of these concepts, that person is not an authentic bodhisattva. If a bodhisattva does not rely on any concepts when practicing generosity, then the happiness that results from the virtuous acts are as great as space, which cannot be measured. In a place where there is something that can be distinguished by signs, in that place there is almost always deception. If you can see the signless nature of signs, then you can see the Buddha." The Buddha asks the disciple, "Do you think the Buddha has arrived at the highest, most fulfilled, awakened mind? Does the Buddha give any definite teaching?" The student replies, "As far as I have understood the Lord Buddha's teachings, there is no independently existing object of mind called the highest, or the most fulfilled, or most awakened mind, nor is there any independently existing teaching or teacher. The teaching that the Buddha has realized and spoken of cannot be conceived of as separate. It's not an independent existing thing, and therefore cannot truly be described. Anyone who, for only a moment, gives rise to a pure and clear confidence upon hearing this teaching of the Buddha, the Buddha sees and knows that person, and he or she will attain immeasurable happiness because of this understanding. Why? Because that kind of a person is not caught up in the idea of a self, a person, or a living being, or a concept of a lifespan. They're not caught up in the idea of a dharma or a teaching or an idea or a non-dharma or a non-teaching or a non-idea. They're not caught up in the notion that this is a sign over here, but that's not a sign over there. When you are caught up in the idea of teaching, you are also caught up in the idea of a self. If you are caught up in the idea that there is no teaching, you are still caught up in the idea of a self. That is why we should not get caught up in dharmas or in the idea that dharmas do not exist. This is the hidden meaning when the Buddha says, "You should know that all the teachings I give to you are just a raft. All the teachings in the end must be abandoned, not to mention the non-teachings. All composed things are like a dream, a phantom, a drop of dew or a flash of lightning. That is how to meditate upon them. That is how to observe them.